Hello, greetings, people of Earth. This is Beth Bailey here with another episode of Let's Chat Creative Pathways podcast, where I like to talk all things creativity, have conversations with other local creatives, and share behind the scenes on what's going on with my arts business and my nonprofit called Creative Pathways. So today, the first thing I wanted to do was say a big thank you to my friend and musician, Greg Loftus, who has generously offered for me to use his music for my intro music. So big change there. I hope you love it. The song I chose is called Dog Days, and it is from his album, Western Medicine, which you can find on Apple Music, Spotify, and anywhere you get your music from. So check that out. The whole song is so good, but of course I only needed about 15 seconds of it. So hope you enjoy those 15 seconds. And thank you so much to Greg for always having such a quick yes to all of my requests, including being interviewed last summer. So go back and check out episode 14 and you can learn more about Greg. That interview was done at his music venue and listening room, The Lounge at the Brew in Falmouth. I'm excited. I'm going to be going there pretty soon to see a concert and have a drink, eat some good food, and I can't wait to get over there. So check out all his stuff. Thank you so much to Greg. The next thing I wanted to talk about is something for my viewers. So if you're listening to this, maybe swap over to video. If you're on Spotify, check this out on YouTube. I have been posting pictures of this on my Instagram as well. So follow along on my Instagram to see what I'm up to. I'm always sharing whatever it is that I'm working on. But next to me is a floral piece. There's a dark background with a bunch of National Geographic magazines cut into strips to start filling the background, and the foreground is a bouquet of flowers. So I wanted to share this piece because this is something I made this painting in college. This must have been around 2009 when I made this, maybe 2010, and it never quite felt finished to me. And then about 10 years ago in 2015, when I took a workshop at Marcia Ballew's house, layering painting and collage, stencils, all these different processes, it really clicked with me. And I knew, okay, these pieces from college, they are the starts. They are the underpaintings for what they are to become. But life has taken me on its own little road through various studio practices, and it's only now in 2025 where I finally have the studio practice separated out. I got my ceramics going. I'm in my studio right now. To the right of me, to the left of me is all of my multimedia, mixed media, 2D pieces. And I finally have the capacity to do that. So last night was a really fun night in the studio. I was working on a ceramics project, and when I finished up that section of the work, I cleaned up and I moved right on over to work on this two-dimensional work. And what a joy. I am so happy. I'm 40 years old, and if you asked me when I was 8 years old what I thought 40 would look like, I'm pretty sure this is a pretty close picture of what I would describe. The studio practice, the community, the arts business, the family, friends, colleagues, I'm so grateful for all that I have and to be in a place where this work that's been in my mind for a long time is actually able to come out of my mind and I'm starting to work it out. So this piece, like I said, I'm filling in the background right now with some collaged papers. The National Geographics are actually from a buddy of mine that had them from her grandfather. Again, it had to have been around that time when I was in college when I got these stacks of National Geographics. Her grandfather had collected them. No one knew what to do with them. Thank you, Lisa, for those. And she's been, these National Geographic magazines have been making it into my work for a long time. So when I used them in college, I would cut them up and make new landscapes using those photos in addition to photos I took. I would sort of like make a puzzle. I would make a new landscape collage, and then I would make a painting of that. So some of those pieces, I'm really happy with the way they came out as paintings. I do have a few, though, that I have looked at and thought, that needs something else. So those are going to make their way back in as well, and I'll start layering collage into those. And I know in one of my sketchbooks around here, I've got to have some of the actual collages I made as reference points for those paintings. So how cool if I actually cut some of those up. Who knows where this work will take me. But another thing I wanted to say about this work is it's also fitting into my business plan well, right? So I am a little worker bee, and I'm always thinking about making art that has opportunity to be shown or interacted with, or can suit some sort of a need where I already have a vision of what to do with that. So I've been doing these creative pathways residencies where I spend many, many weeks, months working with clients to build beautiful collaborative work. That work comes back and I'm working on it in my studio, I'm bringing it back and forth, and helping them guide through. I'm seeing what they're doing and taking that inspiration. I am trying to enhance that. I'm also tightening and making it more professional. But I do have people who want one-time workshops, people who are maybe just having a fun event, or maybe they would just want to dip their toe in. And you really can't make big, large collaborative works in 2 hours that look awesome, right? And that's kind of the whole point of what I'm doing here. I want to make these beautiful gallery museum-ready pieces that you're leaving with. So some of these larger pieces that I am going to be primarily starting on my own in my studio are the pieces that are going to come out to those workshops with me. So keep an eye out for Levitate programming this December, because there's going to be an artist meetup where you're going to have an opportunity to get collaborative on some of this work. So I'll have a couple of these larger pieces going with some direction, some guidance on where to take it next, or if you have your own inspiration, I'm excited to see that. I like when it gets messed up a little bit, because it's taking it in a different direction. It's unexpected, and I like that. I like that these pieces are not a linear path. Then really there isn't any way to mess it up, because if you do something that in the end is just terrible for the composition, I'll pull it back the other direction. So these pieces will go to many different workshops and residencies throughout the year. And also they'll be spending time in my studio, just like the other work. However, at the workshops, I'm also going to have small pieces. So think 6x8 pieces. I have a whole stack of wood that my brother-in-law, Ryan, cut. Thank you, Ryan, for being my woodworker. I dropped off some large panels that just need a little zhuzhin, needed to be cut down into a few different sizes. So Ryan did that for me. That was great. And those smaller pieces of wood at the workshops, people will be working directly on, so they'll have a small take home. I've also been talking with Dave Petty at the Frame Center about getting a bunch of frames that people could use as an add-on. They could pop their piece right into a frame. I mean, really, framing something just, it elevates it no matter what. So that'll be fun. So the smaller pieces, I'm going to have opportunities for people to just work completely independently. They can swap around a little if they like the idea of kind of, quote, messing it up a little bit, and then taking it from there. So I'm excited for all of those opportunities, and I'm hoping that these workshops are going to allow for me to have more time in my studio practice to be working on this 2D work, because I've been building out my pottery business for 10 years. I love doing it, and I'm super happy to be doing it. And I'm really grateful for the clients I have, and I love their projects. But I have had this burning in my brain for a long time. So I've been looking out to 2026, and I'm really going to dedicate some studio time to this. So If you want to do a workshop or you know somewhere that might want to bring me on just for 2 hours, let me know. I have scaled pricing depending on, where am I traveling to? What's the setup like? How many people? But it's a few $100s to have me come out. So reach out. You can DM me at Beth Bailey Pottery or at Creative Pathways Project. Find all my contact info on my website and all that. But okay, I wanted to touch base with a couple other things with you guys because I have fun things coming up. Like I was saying, I'm working on a really fun wholesale order right now with Beach Plum Floral out of Marshfield. Jill Landry put in a really cool order with me for some ikebanas and bowls and also some bud vases that she's going to be offering for sale at her holiday shop this December in Marshfield. So if you're local, mark your calendar and get over there. That's where they're going to be. They're so much fun. And I've been working on the project. It's great. Great digging into it, but it's a decent sized order for me. And so what do I like to do? I like to take nice and big orders. And if I'm feeling like it might make me feel crunched in the studio, I lean on my community. So this time I reached out to my friend Sarah Mennel, who is an amazing ceramic artist out of Boston. I know her through the Clay Lounge in Boston, and Sarah's going to be throwing some of the pieces for me. So I'm throwing some, she's throwing some, and I'm going to be glazing all of them in a custom green glaze that I am blending up and have actually a piece in the kiln right now, a little test tile to hopefully that comes out good and that glaze looks great and they'll be ready to roll. But if you do end up purchasing some of this pottery, take a look at the bottom because I am signing the ones I'm throwing, Beth Bailey and Beach Plum, which goes together very nicely. And Sarah's going to be playing around, I think, with some signatures. But on the ones she throws, she's going to sign them Sarah, Beth, and Beach Plum, which I thought was kind of funny too, because Sarah Beth is like an actual name people have. And so, yeah, so we're coming together. But yeah, so for like a collector's point of view, it's sort of fun. You get a little bit more history about the piece. You can see how many different people worked on it, right? This is all from Jill's brain. She talked to me about it, and then Sarah's going to be throwing some of the pieces, and I'll be glazing those ones. So yeah, so you get 3 names on there. I love Sarah. She's great. She's been down to my studio before, and I'm really just excited to have this opportunity to work with her because I am just obsessed with all of my jobs, and I feel like my best way to interact with my friends is if we have a job going together, because then you're just naturally reaching out throughout the day, right? So yeah, so all my friends who don't work in the arts, I'm sorry for being negligent, but hey, maybe pitch me some commission work. I'll give you a really good deal, and then you'll see me hitting you up a lot more. Okay, that's just the way it is these days. All right, I'm a little bit of a workaholic, but is it a problem if you love it? Maybe if you're neglecting people, but hey, okay, I'm doing my best. I'm aware of trying to find the balance here. So talking about Clay Lounge also brings me to one of the main things I wanted to talk about here. I really need to do better in my intro to be like, okay, these are the things we're talking about, but you probably see it in the show notes, right? And all my marketing, I try to break that down. And Spotify, maybe YouTube too, has a nice little sectioned out timestamps of what all the different topics are I'm talking about. Auto-generated, love that. So hopefully it nails this. Okay, so Clay Lounge has a body of my work on display right now. I am so proud to have 10 years of exploration on display at their Somerville location. The Somerville Clay Lounge studio is primarily a teaching studio. People are going in, they're learning, they're experimenting. And Clay Lounge is just a fantastic community. Everyone I've met there is so kind and warm. And I mean, this just kind of goes throughout the clay community in general. It really is a team sport. To move and to work in your own studio, it's a lot. You know, I'm the only one recycling the clay, which means digging my hands in big things of slop and moving it onto plaster boards that I had to create and wedging and, you know, mixing the glaze all by myself. And it works for me for where I'm at in my life right now. But when you are making work in a community studio, it's great. So many people working together. You're seeing everyone's different pieces come out of the kiln and you're seeing them in process throughout. So you really get just like lots of good ideas and good conversation. So I'm really proud to have been asked to be their featured artist November and I think into December as well. Some of the work is for sale, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about it because, you know, not all the work that is on display is for sale. And the reason for that is because I have selected pieces that are part of my collection, pieces that have come from a variety of bodies of work I've made over the past decade. And I usually like to keep at least one piece. So, for example, 10 years ago, back in 2015 when I started, I was working out of local pottery in Norwell. And the primary way that studio gets color onto pottery is through slip. So that is colored clay that's like slurry mud that you paint on while the clay is still a little bit wet. And there's glazes and all sorts of other processes they use there, but that's the primary studio focus of the owner. And it's a little bit of an unusual practice, actually. You don't see that a ton. So I'm glad that I leaned into that and learned what I could from making work using colored slip. Especially when I was first getting going, right? Because when I was first getting going, it was just figuring out how to make a bowl that was a circle. That was a challenge enough. So the piece that I kept from that body of work, which is now on display in Clay Lounge, is a mountain bowl. And so it has like sort of a brushed blue to white ombre color going all the way around it. And then I carved in a mountain design. I loved making that work. I have a whole bunch of different pieces like that. If you have that piece, if you have a piece from that collection, actually, I would love for you to reach out. So DM me or email me, beth@bethbaileypottery.com. Again, you can get me on Instagram @BethBaileyPottery. And send me pictures, guys. If you have any of my work from over the years, actually, no matter what design, will you send me a picture? They're like your little babies. They go out into the world and, oh God, you don't even see them again. Okay, so maybe it's not like babies. That's it's like a nightmare. My babies never leave. But yeah, you make this art and you remember it well, and then it goes out. So anyway, so I kept this one mountain bowl piece, and it's cool because the reason I decided to show that piece is you can see that I like getting illustrative designs onto my pottery. I started as a painter, right? Remember I'm talking about this painting I'm sitting next to? I started this way before, I was doing painting classes as a kid. I did ceramics classes as a child as well, but in college I studied painting. I really, I have a mind. I have a mind for that. Like I have images in my head I want to get out. So that was my first attempt. And then I just really leaned into for a while just learning the process of how to make pottery that, that held a decent amount of coffee and not just an espresso because the clay shrinks after you fire it too. So it took me a while. First, I was making espresso mugs accidentally, and then I overshot, and I was basically making ice cream bowls with handles, and now I can make a mug for a decent size coffee. But okay, so there's the bowl piece, and then you have these other pieces. I have these platters I made that were just all one color, and some floral designs that I painted on with wax, and the pinch pots. So there's these little pinch pot vases that are on display, and that was from 2020. So we're kind of jumping 2015 to 2020. I think there's work throughout on display as well. But the pinch pots, I know were 2020 because I was no longer working in the community studio because 2020. So I was making work at home, and that's really when I started leaning into building out my home studio. And I didn't have a wheel at that time, so I was making pinched pieces, and I was watching online tutorials because at that time, the world had closed down. A lot of the community studios you could not go into anymore throughout the world, the country. And so there was a couple artists out of, I think, New York, Maggie Boyd and Melissa. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Melissa, sorry, I'm blanking on your name. But I'll link them both here. Melissa, oh my gosh. I was so obsessed with her work for a while. I still love her work. But I did an online class where, Melissa's actually out of North Carolina because I remember her studio in Hurricane Helene, her studio got demolished. So that was terrible. And when she did her online class, it was from that studio. So it was so wild as she was sharing all the updates after that, after the flooding from the river, that I recognized it. I recognized from being in that online class the tutorial that she had done. So the class I took with her, I did a couple, I believe, and it was about making hand-built work. So she makes a lot of hand-built work. It's gorgeous, using slab forms, coils, all sorts of different methods. So I was making these little pinched pieces and also the carved out pieces. So you kind of like make clay into just like a solid brick. And then she went through the process of like how you scoop it out and carve it. So you're kind of carving away almost like you're making a mug out of a rock instead of forming it out of clay, right? But you can do it with clay too using this process. So I have those little pinched pieces on display there where I was making that work. And then I was doing the online course with Maggie Boyd, who she is really into doing all these different layered wax resist glaze applications that just really hit home with me. Oh, okay, this is how I'm going to get these visual ideas I have in my brain onto pottery, right? It's almost like printmaking, right? So she would have a piece of pottery and dip the whole thing in a red glaze, for example. And that's your first layer. So then she'd go through, after it's dried, with a paintbrush and wax and paint the design that she wanted to be in red. So she's sort of protecting that red. And now we're using a brush to really like draw illustrative designs. It just felt so good for me as a painter. And then after you get that layer of red protected with wax, maybe the next dunk you do is the whole thing is in white. Okay, so now anywhere there was the wax painted, it's water-based, glaze is water-based. So the glaze just beads right away from wherever the wax is. So there's no white glaze applied where the wax is applied. It goes everywhere else. So now you have a layered red-white glaze in all of the negative space and your red is maintained. And so maybe that's it. Maybe you're firing there. There's some other techniques she showed as well. And I started messing around with that. So that's what you can see in those pinched pieces where I was just playing around with different designs. And man, it was hard. A bunch of those pieces are actually in my garden. I should include pictures of those at some point because they just did not come out good. Because you really have to understand which glazes layer well together and how to use the wax. Some of the first pieces, I was trying to get the line way too fine and it just wasn't beading away. Or sometimes I was applying the wax, but I hadn't really let the clay or I hadn't really let the pot fully dry out from the previous glaze application. So, or even the other way too, if I wasn't really letting the wax dry and then I dipped it into a glaze, it wasn't beading away. There was a lot of using those little white wedge makeup brushes to sponge away and reveal my wax detail I had put on there. Man, oh my gosh, so many hours doing that. And yeah, so you can see a lot of that messing around and exploration. Then you have also some pieces on display that I had drawn onto the pot with underglaze pencil. So that's done at the bisqueware stage after the piece has been fired once. And those are some of the snake pieces I have. And I have one little tray I made that is ready to hang and has a wire on the back. You can hang it up. And this beautiful snake. So the first thing I did is I drew this beautiful snake design onto this little flat circle. And then I used the wax to paint over the line, right? So now you sort of have a coloring book situation. And then I was able to kind of go through and place all of the glaze where I wanted it to be. That piece ended up getting some gold on it as well. It is so cute. It has just been hanging in my studio. Honestly, I got to hang that in my home when I bring that back. That's one of the pieces not for sale. Sorry, guys. But if anyone wants it, hey, if any of you guys want any of the pieces that are on display at Clay Lounge but are not for sale, let me know. I'll make more, okay? I know how to make all this stuff, remember? So just because it's not currently in my production, I'll fit you in, all right? Clay Lounge special. One of the other pieces I have that I love and I believe may actually still be available, some of the pieces from this body of work over at Sprezzatura Boutique in Plymouth Center. Go check them out. They're great. They put an order in with me for these open mouth mugs. So they're these like sexy open mouths with this beautiful matte red lip. And some of them got gold too. So you got some grills. There's even at least one that has some vampire fangs that are gold. And those are just so fun. Then, of course, you have the booty mugs. We're getting into the sexy stuff. So that is a design pulled from American tattoo culture where it looks like a heart, but then at the center of the heart where it sort of dips down at the top, the line continues to circle around, and you get a little cute booty, throw a panty line in there, and now you're having a sexy coffee, all right? Who doesn't need a sexy coffee in the morning? I don't think those are available for sale anywhere, unless Clay Lounge has some. But yeah. And a rainbow mug. There's a rainbow mug. And you know what? I thought those were all sold out, but I saw 3 available at Levitate in Hingham at the Derby Street Shop's Levitate location. So pop over there if you want a rainbow mug. Those bring me so much joy. Those were also earlier pieces where I was figuring out the color blocking and really inlaying all the different colors. I love that design. I was so grateful for that order. And that's another big production order I got where it ended up being 144 pieces. And Kayla, my sister-in-law, Kayla Gilmore, she helped me throw a bunch of those. And I glazed them all. Actually, I had some help. My friend Buthana came and helped me glaze. My friend Annalise came and glazed. Because once I have the design down and the wax down, it's just sort of filling in with color, right? I think Annalise might have done some of the wax resist as well. But yeah, that was such a fun project. I just like opportunities to work with other people. So again, hey, all non-artsy friends, pitch me your commission. I'll give you a good deal and then I'll talk to you more. So just thank you so much to Clay Lounge for showing this body of work. I was really nervous actually packing it all up because it doesn't all go together. It's all different lines of work. There's other pieces in there I didn't talk about as well, but I'll share some photos. But it's cool. I hope, I was thinking because it's primarily a teaching and learning studio, I thought it might be helpful for people to see, what 10 years looks like of trying to get to the image from your head out and onto the pot. It takes time. You can kind of start and then there's like some stopping because you have to learn another skill. You have all your different skills need to kind of level up on their own until you can do that. And now I feel pretty confident that I can get just about any image out of my head and onto a pot because I understand the materials and the limitation of the materials in the way I use them and in my studio practice as well, right? So that's a whole nother thing that I ended up getting into mixing my own glazes so I can have really good control over that. Glazes layer well together when they're the same base recipe. So a good chunk of my glazes are all one base recipe that I can add different colorants to. Like for the Beach Plum Floral, actually, I'm using my white glaze, which is from Sue McLeod. She's an amazing ceramicist and she loves glaze chemistry. I've also done an online class with her to advance my knowledge about glaze chemistry, and that's one of her recipes. I have a version of that I use for my white studio glaze. And then the add is copper carbonate. So it's actually powdered copper, and that got mixed in. So that's the piece I have test firing right now. Hopefully it's enough, because I looked at all the measurements, and glaze mixing is really quite a science. There's chemical reactions and whatnot. So you're really weighing everything down to the gram. And yeah, I had basically just under enough of the colorants I needed to make the matte green glaze. So I just used everything I had. So hopefully that's enough. Otherwise, I got to go shopping again for more materials and test that out some more, which is fine. I'll do that if I have to. But yeah, last thing I wanted to say is I have an award celebration coming up. This episode might be coming out after that, but I'm definitely going to try to get some good pictures and videos celebrating that. I'm so excited. Finally, it is a celebration for having been named the 2025 Community Arts Educator of the Year by the MAEA, the Massachusetts Art Educators Association. I'm really grateful that the president of the association has offered to come down to the event and hand me my award. So that's going to be really fun. I have a gathering of some friends, family, and colleagues coming to celebrate. And I'm really excited to just get everyone together, have some food, celebrate. Of course, I'm going to have my sketchbooks there for people to participate. I might bring some pottery for sale. And yeah, this is sort of a little bit of a launch of a celebratory event. I'm going to put a little speech together just talking about, geez, who even knows what, right? I could go on and on about anything. But really just trying to kind of like thank people for supporting me to get me where I am. Community arts education is all about community. So all of these different people who will be there will have helped in their own ways. And I'm very grateful for all of that. I'm excited to celebrate that. And then I want to talk about the future, where I see Creative Pathways going and where I see support that I could use from these people. And like a lot of times it's just continuing to evolve the community. Like, hey, think about Creative Pathways. Think about where a one-time workshop could go. Think about a client that might want a longer term residency to make art. Think about a client that might want to put a wholesale pottery order in with me, not only just to sell the work for themselves, but maybe as employee gifts or customer gifts like they're doing over at Frame Center, right? So there's all sorts of different ways that you can be involved in my community, and just being front of mind for people is so huge as an independent artist and a small business. So thank you so much to all of you for listening. Thank you to Greg for the music. Thank you to Ryan for cutting the wood. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little recap and behind the scenes on everything I have going on. And keep an eye out for the next interview. I'm actually getting back on my interview series. I have an interview tomorrow morning I'm psyched about. And then I think I have 2 next week. So they're coming in hot. It's going to be awesome. And I hope you're all doing so well. Keep an eye out for the next episode. And yeah, talk to you soon.